Reish Chodesh Menachem Av Tavshin Samech Tes when Hemshik Samech Tes from the Rebbe Rishav on Amid Mem Hey.
Right. So we sort of say how it is. Mitzad the Gilei HaLimud Shebechachma, or Chachma is Bechal B'derech Hamshocha B'derech Limud. Or in other words, it comes from the Koach HaTzeimer Shebechachma Stimor and Shebekeser. We saw that was the Aleph, or the word Alefcho, which brought down in Mishlei, Alefcho Chachma. Well, that's indicatory of the Shurish and the Mokeh from whence Chachma itself is Nimsha. And we brought the Dugma that the Tzia Eis Aleph, the very making and the form of the Eis Aleph, how it's written, Hu Yud Beroish, the Yud Beseif, the Kav Be'emtzor, that there's a Yud above, and then there's the Alachsoin, how do you call it, the leaning line, and then you have the Yud at the bottom. The Inen HaYud, we saw that was the Inen of Tzimtzum Kenakuda. It was a Tzimtzum in the form of a Nakuda, and a Tzimtzum in the form of a Nakuda is a form of intensifying and gathering together a whole series of inyonim and bringing them into one intense point. So the inyan of a tzimtzum of a nakuda is on the one hand maybe an efsha, indicatory that there's been or there can eventually be a lot of pratim in that nakuda, but they're all brought together in one intense inyan, and therefore they have to be opened out again, because that symptom is brought to more in the form of a very highly intensified, how would you call it, intensity, or what's the word, tamtzis, like we saw when they get to the Nakudas HaTamtzis. Oh, the Nakudas is another way back. That's after you've already got into Bina. What do you call it, an extreme essential idea, the essence of the idea. So that's going to lead us to an understanding in the idea of an akuda in the second madrega. We're going to see that really there's two madregas in the Inen akuda. By the way, I'm holding a sefer which is not really my sefer. I forgot my sefer here when I went to Dov Marav last night or something, and somebody bought me the sefer, but it's not my sefer. So just by the way, if anybody happens to see a sefer with my name written, I don't even know if this belongs to somebody called Rabinovich. Anyway, I don't know where it eventuated from, but I wouldn't mind. Is that mine? Yeah, thanks.
I think so.
No, it's not mine either. It's I wouldn't mind possessing this one for the time being, because it's a good one. It's a newish one with a couple of Esofas that my Esofa doesn't have. So I don't know if Rabinovich will mind, but he's going to have to be careful. So I might just sort of pocket it. You know. So anyway, he says that Aleph, the inyan of the Aleph is the two Yudin with the Kav Be'emtzor. Inyan HaYud, we saw who b'chinas atzimtzum kenakuda. V'hu shenisalem ha'oyer ha'koidem she'einu meir begiloi klal. In reference to the tzimtzum harishon, we say that what happened there was that the oyer ha'koidem, the oyer that was mamalet kol ha'metziyat, or that was misalem within the moya and within the atmos moya, and einu meir begiloi klal, it's left over almost like what we call a mokum panui. V'gam, and in addition, v'gam, that's a further inyan, anakuda hu shenisalem, v'anakuda koileles b'chinas ha'er she'yizgale, and the nakuda is koilel in itself, the oil which is going to go out to the Makablim eventually. It's going to be Mizgala to the lower Madregas. V'hainu, Shu Rach Nakuda Achas Meha'er HaKoidem. It's only a Nakuda Achas from the previous light. V'gam zeh, and that is a furthering, Gam zeh, Mishtamtzeim B'chinas Nakuda. It also withdraws itself or how do you call it, retracts or intensifies itself in the form of a nakuda. Ukamish kosu b'mokim acher. Ve'achar havov hu b'chinas hamshocha shalei achar tzimtzum hanakuda. In other words, after the nakuda is kind of gone or carried out this form of tzimtzum, or then the nakuda, as it were, opens out. And there's a hamshocha from that nakuda, which literally is after the tzimtzum. In other words, it opens up in some way the tzimtzum, and it becomes a gilui from the nakuda up to the makablim. And we saw that was the inyan of the vov. And that was a long line which indicates the hamshocha after that nakuda, the tzimtzum. And we brought the dogma from the three madregas which are brought down, and when he plays in the nakuda kav v'shetach, shemetchila tzimtzum hanakuda, that's the tzimtzum which led to the nakuda, or the tzimtzum of the nakuda kilo in itself, ve'achachach u'b'chinas hamshochas ha'ora mi'anakuda, b'chinas kav kotzer, and afterwards there's the inyan of shetach. We will do that shortly. So the truth of the matter is that it's mashma that kav is the mocker. I'm sorry, that nakuda is the mocker of kav, and kav is the mocker, and then the scene is mocking to shetach. Not three separate inyonim, but they are interconnected, and one, as it were, leads to the other. In other words, that despite the fact that the nakuda is a inyan tzimtzumi, its inyan is tzimtzum, is tzamtzum, intensification inside itself, nonetheless it opens out into a cow. And that kufa needs a biur, and how come the nakuda opens out? You know, if it's an intense, like tzimtzum within itself, then what causes it to open out? So we have to say that there are two inyonim here in nakuda, which really we could say are two different nakuda, or two different types or aspects of nakuda. They're not just one nakuda, and that's in the lashon ve'inyan hayudu b'chinas hatzimtzum kinakuda with a kof adimen, like a nakuda. Ushin isalem ha'er ha'koidem and einam mea begiroi. In other words, that if you take, this is maybe a dogma klolis of what we talk about, Lamaila, the Rashimu, which is left over after the tzimtzum. Now, the Rashimu is called Nakudas HaRashimu. And we can say that Rashimu has in itself these two inyanim that we're going to see here. So, on the one hand, a nakuda can be described in a general way as a tremendously minor trace of what was previously the case. And that's what we see, that the word Rashimu has also got in itself that idea of a reshim, of something which is left over. But if you say reshim, then you mean a leftover from the previous state. And you can't talk about a reshim unless you've got a reality in that leftover of what was there before. And then we call it a reshim of what's left over. But if it's just something separate altogether, it's not a reshim. It's a new inyan. Therefore, one aspect in nakuda is that we end up after the tzimtzum with a light which, albeit is from the previous light, it's already lo be'erech to the form of gilui that was before. Not in the spashas and breadth of the gilui, not in the sug and the pneumius of the gilui. Ein v'zeh kol erech klalu klal. to the Indian Eragil, but we're not talking so much about the etzem imagery of a nakuda. We just mean that that's so, what you might call minor, and so in the erech cloud, like what was there before, we call it a nakuda, like a nakuda bilvad. And that's the concept of rishon, that you might say in the Indian of Rishimo. And then, says the Rebbe, after that, there's a further where the nakuda becomes mitzamtzeim bibchinas nakuda, not how do you call it, kinakuda, or that which is left over, that more or less nothing from the previous oya, or that itself then develops what you might call the imagery of a tzimtzum, of a nakuda. It goes into a intensified point, which is later going to be the mocker of all the giluim which are going to come. So, what could we say what is the implication of that? That, if, for example, a Rav with a Talmud, first of all, the Rav being as he is absolutely shaloi be'erah to the Talmud, then when he wants to be mashpia, a soger, the way he has it down to the Talmud, then first of all he has to make a tzimtzum. And it's very similar to the tzimtzum origin. He has to become completely independent, put aside everything, and he's no longer masik that in the way he really is. He makes like almost like a gap between him and what he's going to now be talking about. And that leads to this idea of a Rishimo Klolius, that what he's now, he's made a sort of a makor to eventually give over, which is not really better to the way he understands it at all. But even so, it's a trace of what he understood. So how's he going to get that over to the Talmud? What he has to do is perform a new act, which we call the making of a hiyuli. Now, we've had before in Chassidus the concept of a hiyuli. What a hiyul is a Greek word meaning a potential but abstract source point. That's what we call a hiyuli. In other words, that all the details are shaykh in the hiyuli, but they're not in a state of matziyas in the hiyuli. It's just that he can give them already forth. And that's, for example, our koyach ha'maskil, our mind, that produces all the things that we need from an unidentifiable source. It's got everything we're going to need in there, but not in a detailed existing form. But nonetheless, it's like a huge storehouse of all the details. That's called a hiyuli, as well known, and we've had that on the occasions. That's called an akuda hiyulias. And there's one on the word hiyuli is a Greek word, but there's a mimer from the Rebbe Rashab in a place where he writes that the words that are borrowed in from those languages, all of them have some remez to a Inyan and Elakus. Therefore, the word hiyuli is a Rosh Tevis, V'hoyo Hashem Lamelech. I forgot exactly how it was. V'hoyo Hashem Lamelech. Mashu Kazeh. Hiyuli is like a Rosh Tevis of a pasuk referring to Elakus. Al Chaponim. We see that the hiyuli is an intense embracing of all the details, but not just being a makeup of all the details. It can produce the details, but it's as it were moved on him at the same time. That's the nakuda shnir. That's the second nakuda. Because that's really a nakuda in the real sense. It's like an intense dot which is made up of details. Like when you bring all the spectrums in the light, and you bring them all together into one intense point, they almost burn things. They have a tremendous intensity, and they form one nakuda. Not they almost do. I think they do. Right? They consume that intense point can burn into things because of the extreme intensity of all the aspects of the spectrum come together. And that's what we call a nakuda hiyulias. And the Rebbe says that we've got two here in Yom. One symptom is that the oya b'klal is a new type of oya that has no erech, like the that was there before, and that's called a nakuda. In other words, it means just like a dot in the ocean, you might a drop in the back of the face, nothing like what it was like before. And then we say that that's still too high for the Makablim. How's that going to get over to the Makablim? We have to produce already details. In other words, that in the kavana of the Rav is he already had in everything he was looking for how he's going to give that over eventually to the Talmud. So he produces a new form of Nakuda, which is what he got all the inyonim in it, what he really wants to say to the Talmud, but it's still hidden in the form of an intense dot, and that's what we call Nakuda, and that's the inyan of Nakuda Sa Chochma, or Pnimis HaChochma. It's not much the Borach HaMavrik, but it's pretty close sort of on that way. And that's called Nakuda HaYuliyas. So the question is, how does that open up? I mean, how do you get that just all of a sudden to open up and give out all of its details? Like we saw that the Koyach HaMaskil doesn't the stam open up. Either you have to have tremendous help from heaven, or another thing is that you have to really want. If you really want, and you're really devoted, like we learned in the earlier parts of the Hemshech, then the Nakuda can begin to open and come down into understanding. So the same thing that we bowed, as is mavur in the Hemshech Samach from the Rebbe Nishmas Eden, that we bowed the Rav, his kavona, and he's got an emissary kavona that ultimately carry out the emissary kavona, which is to go down to the Makablim. It's not a trick for him just to be a tremendous Baal Hasoga. He's got to get it over to the Makablim. That when he produces that first symptom in himself, and he just produces a Mokeh Kloli, which is called a Nakuda, but with another idea of Nakuda, he has in mind the ultimate purpose of his whole being in this world is to teach Talmidim. How's it written in the Mishnah? Ha'amidu Talmidim Harbe. Right? You can be the biggest Rav in the world, but you've got to be Ma'amid Talmidim Harbe. That's what I've been trying to persuade the so-called, well, I don't know, it's so nice to say that, the Anhola Klolis of this Moised, for decades and decades I've been trying to persuade them that. So, anyway, you have to have Talmidim Harbe. But also upon him you have to have Talmidim. In other words, that in the purpose of the Rav, he knows that his ultimate purpose, he's going to come down and bring that over to the Makabel. That's the whole inyan why he's there. And ever since when he makes that first symptom, he has in mind and he's aiming at the net has a power to do two inyanim. First of all, it causes that second Nakuda that there already come about potentially details which are not there in the first Nakuda. And secondly, that gives that Nakuda the power to eventually be opened up. And because he wants it that way, then eventually that's what's going to happen. Because the Rotzen is poil, behelim, and how do you call it, makif, on the Nakuda, and makes him eventually open up. Oh, but here's where the other Nakuda comes. There's another Nakuda in Siddur which is Mavur, that's called the Nakuda Samakabel. But the Makabel also has a Nakuda in himself. And what's his Nakuda? He's got to go out of all of his normal tunas and all of his inyanim, and he's got to intensify himself in one intense Nakuda that he's bottled to the message of the new Hasoga, and he wants Be'emes to understand. You understand? He's Be'emes devoted with all his being. He becomes like a Nakuda bottle Gamri to the Shefa with the Rav is giving him, or even higher than that, he's bottled to the Etzem Rav. That Nakuda, that causes the Nakuda Ha'aliyah for the Mashpia to open up. In other words, that the ability for it to open is given by the Rav. Over actually making it open, but well, that's dependent in the Makabel. So that means that when you create in yourself your own Nakuda, sometimes that you can sometimes stop there, and you can tend to get lazy, and you can say, well, I don't need to go down to all these details and do I'm busy with all sorts of other inyanim. Whatever you got to have this Nakuda that you're bottled to the Emes Kavana to bring out all of the inyanim into a pashtas, even within yourself. That happens to be the case. How much more so in the Emes Inyan of Ashpoya, well, that's Nakuda. And therefore we've got then two inyanim in the Nakuda. We're not talking about that last Nakuda. That's the Nakuda of the Makabel, that's another inyan. We're talking now about the first two Nakudas. And therefore the Rebbe says that there's an inyan fin what's Nakuda, and that's just the helm of the air, which is no longer begolui, and therefore it's not be'er to what was there before. And then the Nakuda is a kaleles, b'chinas ha'er she'is galagam. In addition to that, another Nakuda. Nakuda achas, me'er ha'koidim, that's one inyan. V'gam zeh mitzamtzim b'chinas Nakuda, that's a second inyan. Dahainu, that it's koil in itself proti. And therefore he says, Ukiyatu have been in Nakuda kav shetach, that Nakuda is referring to the Nakuda that's koil all the protim in it, the intensity, and then the kav comes out of that, and then we run into the inyan of shetach. But that's, as it were, area or development is pushed outwards of the high Nakuda coming through the Vav into its eventual Gilui in Olam Biyah, and therefore it's called Shetach. So therefore he says, Shemizgale, Shemetchila Tzimtzum HaNakuda, Ve'achar כך הוא בחינת המשוחס האורה מהנקודה, בבחינת קו קוצר. That's what we mean here, kotzar, in the sense that it's mitzumtzam. Not that it can only go a short way, but it's kilo legabi, the original eretz from kitzer. Ve'yesh loima shezeu b'chinas hamshoches hasayres shehu k'moi kav. Wherever the hamshocha, the sayres, and the hamshocha of the kav are similar in Yonim. The difference between them is that the Inyan from Kav is right way back in the original Shoresh of everything, the original Tzimtzum Arishon, and then you have the Nakudas Harashimu, and we pointed out you have the Kav. Then on lower levels, you have from Keser into Chochmah Stimua, and from Chochmah Stimua into Chochmah, you have similar in Yonim. Daino Inyan from Nakuda, and then after that, the Inyan of the Amshocha from the Nakuda into and through Bina, eventually into the Midas, and eventually into Malchus, and that's already the Inyan of Shetach. Malchus is sort of the Inyan of Shetach, because Malchus spreads everything out and makes a Hamshocha into Biyah. So therefore he says that that's the Inyan of the Hamshochas HaNakuda, Bibchinas Kav, from the Inyan of the Nakuda, and he said that's the Inyan of Cyrus, which is like a Kav. In other words, the Amshocha from Chochmah Stimua into Chochmah Gluya, as we said already on a number of occasions, that's still a Cyrus, then that's similar to the idea of the Kav. In Parsha Vayetze, in the first Maimah, Be'inyan Vovin V'Yudin, the Yud Kimu Tkunei Dikno. Well, we described that briefly last night. That we have in the Yud Gimel Tkuni Dikno, that Kaviochu, just like the siders of the Zokain, where they come through the skin, then there's a hole, that's where they come out, and then the Nimshachler, Lamata. So the inyan of the sort of the hole, or that's the connection of the cider with its shurish, which is Chochmah Stimua, Penim the Chochmah, and then there's the inyan of the Vav is the Amshocha, well, that's like a Seyala, which is like a hair. It's only that over there, the Alter Rebbe asks, over there he asks a kasha. I don't know if we could either go to the whole kasha. Is maybe we'll just maybe we'll just leave it. But over there the Alter Rebbe has a diuk that l'chayra we learn this. How does he get it? Well, that he gets from what Yankov Avinu did. That Yankov Avinu lifted up a matzeva, and then he poured shemen al reisha. If you remember when he put his head down on the stones, and then he made the stones into a matzeva, and then he was mamshich shemen al ha matzeva. So he's malva the heads of the stones that he put his head on, that in from Chochmah, because the Sherish of the Ace is in Chochmah there, Chochmah Gluya or Chochmah Eloah. Then the Mateva, or actually the Vav that comes out of Chochmah, in other words, the Amshocha from Bina into Zoh. And then they said that the Shemen al Roisha, that's an even higher Indian. The Shemen is Pinimis al Chochmah, it's Chochmah Stimor. Well, if he said, come to this, that the stone which was Chochmah, the Sherish of the Vav is at the bottom, and the Matzeva grows up into the air. Well, that's any from Aliyah, of a Maila, and then there's a much higher, and it comes down a mile. So he said that if we talk about the siders, I mentioned the Moshel, that's the other way around. The hole inside is on a higher Madrega, and the Sayah tends to be a lower Madrega. But Ilu, in the whole picture of Yankov, that seems to be the other way around. It's like the Yud's Lamad, and then the Vav is higher, and then there's a very high Amshocha comes onto it. So what he answers is that it's really not a Kashia, because the Shemen that he pours on it is Chochmah Stimor, Chochmah Pnimis of Chochmah, higher than ordinary Chochmah. And Mamela, that would grow the Saya, or the Etzem Matzeva grows upwards, out of the Indian for Chochmah. Well, that is Chochmah Gluya, that it goes through Chochmah Gluya, and then it comes upwards. It's going downwards into Midas. Why is it coming upwards? Because the ultimate purpose, and the ultimate Indian of everything, is to take everything and elevate them into a much higher Madrega, which is Chochmah Stimor. And Chochmah Stimor is Emes of Bittel to the Rotzen of the Rotzen of the Eibishter. And therefore we see that in the Indian of the Menorah, for example, we used to light the candles in the Menorah, and they came from Shemen, which is Chochmah Stimor, and the purpose of those candles was to be mamshich the Indian of Bittul into the whole Indian of the Beis Hamikdash, and beikah to be mamshich the Bittul of Torah, because Torah, the Twan on the Menorah had to be slightly towards the middle, and it was mamish opposite the Orein. So we see that ultimately speaking, the purpose of everything is to take all the midas and all the inyonim, and take them from Chochmah, but to eventually bring them back to Chochmah. And that's what we're going to shortly. There's a famous lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah, Chochmah Bereish for Chochmah Beseif. In other words, wherever you start, you got Chochmah. Wherever you finish, you're going to meet up with Chochmah. So therefore, it all boils down to the same meaning, that ultimately we're going the other way around over there in Torah, only because we're talking about the ultimate shleimus is to take all of that and elevate it up. And that's the greatness of the hairs of the beard. It's brought into this, that the hairs of the beard, even though they grow outwards, really they're going upwards, because they're a hamshocha from Chochmah Stimor, and they lead you back into Chochmah Stimor, and therefore you get Chochmah Stimor, how it is mamish in the Yud Gimel Tkunei Dikna. Therefore they're also connected with Rachamim, as well known. The beard is the Indian from Shochasah Horachamim. So it all ends up ultimately to the same basic Indian. And therefore the famous story with Friedrich Rebbe, that the Friedrich Rebbe said that why is it a small child? Have you ever noticed when you pick up a small child, he digs his fist into your beard, he grabs at the beard, and he sort of grabs at it very eagerly, and he sort of holds on in your mouth. Sometimes you've got to sort out his fingers out of your beard. So the Friedrich Rebbe said, why is that? Because a child grabs at Rachamim. He senses the Indian of Rachamim, and Echab Tzachon. He holds on. That a Yiddish kind holds Tzachon in Rachamim. A Jewish child holds himself onto the Indian from mercy. Well, that's the Indian. Ultimately speaking, the sales really go up. They look to be going down, but they're really going up. And that's what Yaakov Avinu was Megala to us, that the sales which are the Matzeva, they're really going up. And they're mamshich from Chochmah Stimor, how it's in Primus, that's what we're going to see in a minute, how it really is in Keser Elion, and that's Rachamim Gemuri. Okay, so, Al Chapanim, that's the Indian of the Vavin and the Yudin of the Yud Gimel Tkunei Dikna, because ultimately speaking, the Alter Rebbe is talking about how it's going upwards. והיוד שבסעיף האלף, יש לומר שהוא בחינת חוכמה, meaning חוכמה גלויה. In other words, meaning חוכמה האותורי, חוכמה נצילת, not חוכמה סתימה. וזהו גם כן האלף, דלו אלפים. Now it's one of the Yud Kuni in the, anybody got a siddur? Because otherwise it's a little bit harder to show that we've got a siddur, it's easy to point. You're familiar with every day in Tachanun, we say the Yud Gimel Sarachim of Moshe Rabbeinu. In Elul we have a kavanah to another Yud Gimel Sarachim. That's Yud Gimel Sarachim of Micha. But the Yud Gimel Sarachim of Moshe Rabbeinu are these ones here. And according to the Arizal, even though there's different opinions about that in the Rishonim, in the Gemara and Rosh Hashanah, although he brings the Gemara Rosh Hashanah further along a bit, there are differing opinions, but we, according to the Kabbalah of the Arizal, we only count the Yud Gimel Sarachim from the word Kael, that the two Shemeis are not counted as Midas, Horachamim. And the reason for that is because the two Shemeis, they're the inyan of the Peyas Harosh, they're the inyan of the Amshocha, from the Gugelta, from the, how do you call it, the skull bone, down into the, well, that's the inyan of Keser, down into the inyan of Gilui, Midas Harachim, which is the beard. So the Peyas are very high madrega, they're like the shurish of the Gilui of the Rachman. So in that way, come to us that the Peyas are really higher than the beard, come to us, and they give us some prat. But they've got to link into the beard, and they've got to be one together with the beard, the whole big arichas, and therefore we don't count the two shemas. We begin counting from the word kael. So if you count down to the word alofim, but not including noitzer chesed lo alofim, after that, noitzer ovim v'feshev v'chator v'nakei, then you get 8 harikot tikkunim, 8 of them altogether, and then the lo alafim begins another 5, and there's another 5 which they finish off the 13. So over there in Torah, in the Maimar Diva Maschel Tona Rabbanan Ner Chanukah, over there the Alter Rebbe talks about, we already had this on previous occasions, he talks about the Shiva Haroim and the Shmoina Nasichei Odom, the 7 shepherds of the Jewish people, and then there's the 8 princes of man, but they're very unusual, and they're from a very high madrega. They're from the Indian of Pnimis, and therefore they come down in the form of Tmimus and Pshitas, and they're higher, they're not able to teach the people so much, but they just be Megala Elakus to them. And later, by Liyosid Love, the Ika Gila is going to be from the Shmoyed and Nasichei Odom, because Mashiach, he's one of them. And Eliyahu Anov is also one of them. And Shaul, he's the first of them, Shaul HaMelech, interestingly enough. And Yishai, the father of David, a whole series of very fascinating people in the Gemara Masechta Sukkah right near the end. Those are the Shmoyna and Nasichei Odom. So the Rebbe says over there that they are the Ika Makif, as it were, of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachimim, and therefore down until the word Le'alofim, it's all Makif, it's all like inyanim which are beyond Gilui in the Pnimi, therefore it's the Shmoyna Nasichei Odom, what their Ika inyan is Makif, and the last 5 Tikkunim, they are shot to the Shiva Haroim. I was only 5 and not 7, Kasha for Maisa, they are shot to the Shiva Haroim, and they're the inyan of Pnimi. So therefore he says that the Yud Shebesov, that's in from Chochma, v'zeh gam kein ho'alef de lo alafim, because lo alafim is already beginning the inyan of Pnimi. It's already beginning how the Makif comes down into a Pnimi, and that will be the aleph of the word lo alafim, because that's already teaching in a way of going down through a Seder of Madregas, u'kenaidas as well known, the Tikkun, or that midah of the Yud Gimel Midah, is what they call Tikkunim, or that midah or Tikkun, which is called Lo Alofim, who was Cholas Bechinas or Pnimi. It's the beginning of the Pnimi. In other words, it's already Chochma outside to the Seder HaMadregas in Olam HaTzilas, and therefore it goes over in a form of Limud, from one Madrega to the the other shmoine midos or tikunim, they indicate this union of the lamaila pnimi dinim from makifim of Chochmas Timor and Keser. Therefore, he says, "Kemoikeinu amshoches hachochma lamata, gam kein." I'm sorry. V'hainu she'amshocher b'chochma hu b'chinas upena v'limud shezehu alidei tzimtzum. That comes through the union, like we've seen already of tzimtzum. Kemoikeinu amshoches hachochma lamata. Also, the amshocher of chochma into elam is bi'ah. And we also see the Seder of the Amshocha of Chochma Lamata, from one Odom to a Tzveita, is through the union of Limud. It's this union of Tzimtzum, and it comes from the Lamaila Meiseichel, the Koyach HaTzomer Sheboy, which is a much lower level, which is Bottle V'Kolu, and therefore it comes Yesh Mi, Ayin, as we saw by the Moshe of Tzmicha, and therefore Chochma Gluya is a form of Yesh, compared to a Sherish in Keser, which is in von Ayin. Amar Shemoshiach, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Avol Liosid. However, he said when after the Gilead, the Geula Shlema, Ksiv, V'lo Yelamdu Ishes Ri'ehu, there won't be any more the Seder of Limud. It won't be any of the reader, but there are Tzimtzumim from Chochma into Bina, and from Lamaila Me'ach Chochma to Tzimtzum into Chochma. But what's going to be the Seder? Mishum Deli Osid, Yishkala B'chinas HaChochma Kemoishu B'chinas Ha'ayin. In other words, the Ayin Ha'atzmi of Keser. In other words, in order for us to get to Chochma, we have to go through the Tzimtzum of Yesh Me'ayin and Minyan von Tzomeach in order to get to our Chochma. But he said, what's going to be Mishkala Liyosid? Like we learned last night, that everybody's going to have the same koiches, but in that koich is going to be Mishkala di Ayin, how it is in Keser, Shaloi Alidei Helem V'Tzimtzum Klal, not through the union of Tzimtzum, which is normally speaking the union of Gilead Chochma, which is called Limud. And even from Chochma Stimor and Keser into Chochma Glu is Derek Limud. But Leosi, it's not going to be like that at all. It's all just going to come down straight from its Mokeh into Gilui in the Koiches of the Adam Lamata. So therefore said the Rebbe Yiyu Shovim Kotan Godel. And then how do you call it? Small and great will be equal. Ki kulam, that's the Lashon of the pasuk over there. Ki kulam yedu oisi. All of them will know me. They'll all be completely makushar in atzmus, b'chinas atzmus ein tzei. In other words, that everybody equally is going to know the union b'derek yediyah ishkashus pnimiyat in ein tzei, without having to be taught it literally b'derek tzimtzumim. In other words, as you might say, it's going to hit you, and it's well known. The famous story of the Samech Tes, where he says that when Moshiach will come, then those who've been busy with Pnimis Lateh will say, oh, aha. It'll all be mishkala to them in a way that will kill, hit them the emes. Aha. We already told you that story on numerous occasions, and hopefully there's no necessity to repeat it over again. However, so therefore says the Rebbe that it's going to be revealed equally to each and every individual in a form of Yediyah Brura Yedu Oisi. Uksiv, and it's also written, Umolo ha'oretz deya es ha'havaya v'lo yeh shaykh inyan halimud. That the whole earth is literally going to be full of deya. So here we see that Kulam Yedu Oisi, and here's Mola Horetz Deya. In other words, we see that the Oifen, the Iskashus in Alakus, is not just going to be purely in a form of Seichel Vasoga, even though it'll be in the Kalim of the Asoga, but it'll be in Oifen Das and Deya. Therefore, he brings that the whole world is going to be full of Das. So the truth is the famous diktuk of the Rebbe in that the inif the pasuk goes on to say, Kamayim layam machasim, like the water covers the sea, and it's gone on that in the sea you got different depths. So it's not going to be the same to everybody. So we have to say that and the Hanami, there will be maybe certain differences in the way that at least in certain periods. At the beginning, the way certain individuals will be higher than others. But the klal here is that it means that there will be a das in Elikus for everybody. In other words, that they all know in a high oifen, just in that high oifen, there might be certain people who have every Indian in Kedusha has got itself Madregas Adain and Kate. That if there'll be some people who have higher knowledge or deeper or more profound, but not mitzad the limud shebadova, but mitzad the amount of gilu which they're given, but derech yediyah. So the Rebbe, that's the in and how it's going to be li osid. Oma v'loi yesh shayach inyan halimud klal. It won't be necessary or applicable anymore. The whole inyan of normal limud. Umashe Moshiach Yalamid es Yalamid Das es all. We have a cloud that Moshiach is going to teach everybody. He's going to teach them and reveal them the inyan from Das. There will be inyan for teaching. Yedua Shaloi Yeh B'chinas Limud V'Asoge K'mo Yachshov. But he won't teach in that way. Ki Im Yeh B'chinas Re'iyah. That he's going to reveal the inyan for Re'iyah. And Re'iyah is possible to do massively. You can show something to massive amounts of people. And if they all see it, then they all gain it immediately at one go. So, albeit it could be that certain people will see deeper, or they'll gain a deeper pilus within themselves from having seen. But everybody will see basically the whole inyan that Mashiach will reveal.
I've learned this before. I think in the matter of Friedrich, he said the same thing. My question is, like, even in our days, people could see something, but they have no idea what it is.
Yeah, but that's the difference. Mashiach is going to reveal it to you in such a way that you'll see it and you'll know what it is. In other words, that you will be amazed that you wasted your time looking at all this other stuff called the world, and you'll be looking at what you might call the real McCoy, to use the expression. And that was the story I told you the other night by the Shir Klo. It's put down in the Yalkut. It's not actually a Gemara. It's put down in the Yalkut about Reb Mashiach ben Chorash. He just popped his eyes out. He couldn't sort of hold himself in a certain inyan according to his standards. So he popped his own eyes out. And the reason being for that is that he couldn't be bothered anymore wasting energy on looking at all this, what you might call deceptive Dracoff of a world that he wanted to already be preparing himself to see, the emissaries sort of seeing. So I mean that's the basis behind the story, what may look to be a rather horrifying story. I mean, that's what the basis behind it is. Kamuman, nobody recommends that people go around popping their eyes out, Cholila. But Al Chaponim, that's an akuda, that there's a much higher form of re'iyah is waiting, as it were, for everybody. And then that's brought down in the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah, Pasha Achrei. He brings over that even when you go up now to Gan Eden, you all of a sudden chap yourself and say, why did I waste my time on all this? I was living right in the midst of all the truth, and I was looking at the wrong. I was wasting my time with the wrong schlera. So we got to learn to look at the right inyonim, and to know that the opening of the eyes is already occurring, and it's about to occur, Be'ez Hashem b'shleimus. If not. So he said, Umashe Moshiach lo yeh b'chinas limud v'asoga k'mo yachshov ki im yeh b'chinas rio. V'hainu Mashe yareh, Moshiach will show v'yigaleh b'chinas hamahus telekus l'kol Yisrael acham yishkos v'mokim that he's not going to just reveal understanding or show you if it's nice in Yonim. He's going to show you mahus elikus. The actual essence of elikus will be visible to the Gashmistika eye. So come over. When that happens, you say, Dr. Kaval, what did I waste my eyes on all this other, what you might call rubbish? In other words, that he's going to see the emissary hall in a mahus, so he won't even look at the, like the Alter Rebbe we quoted you last night, that the Alter Rebbe said, well, then he goes, Sakoidus, will know all the nigla from the pnimis, and it'll just be v'derech mamela to those who really worked at it. Now that's exactly the lotion of the Alter Rebbe in Perek Lamed Vav in Tanya, that this already happened. It's already been forever, meaning it's been in history. Because mamish in this way, b'matan Torah. But over there it was Lafi Shor, temporarily, had it got just for the moment. Behigolis nigles, me'ur atzmas ain't seiparachu. Behigolis nigles is a way of like doubling the verb with the very revelation, with the perfect or best revelation. Me'ur atzmas ain't seiparachu. B'chinas giloi atainug haposhut ho'atzmi b'dibur da'anoichi. Amamela said that by Matan Torah, alle Yidden saw the moche v'shoirish of Chochmah Stimor. Well, we saw that was the Inen from Gilui Atainog HaPoshut. That's the Inen, how it is, Mamish in Atzmus Pnimis HaKeser. Or that was all Begolui to each and every Yid in the highest form, Tainug HaPoshut, Mamish Atz Miyuchad, with Atzmus, Tainug HaPoshut Atzmi, and that revealed itself in the Dibor Onoi Hashem Elokecha Sheheitzi Sicha Mi'eretz Mit. In other words, that was Gilui Atzmus, Mamish Gilui Akus. In other words, the Abbot was first of all presenting his credentials. He was saying, listen, I'm about to command all these. You don't know who is talking. This is who I am. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I took you out of all the medidas v'hagbolas. I've lifted you beyond all limitations, as one on the famous Biurin says about that. So when they heard the dibur of Anochi meaning I myself, the Abbot is saying, alle Yidden were oile into the madrega of etzem atayin raposh. We saw that's the mokia atzmi of Chochmah. Even of Chochmah Stimor. Shazeh, hoyo his garas uir atzmas hakeser. But that's Tainuk v'atzmi. K'moishu b'li shum helem v'tzimtzum. There wasn't, it didn't go through any parsa. Meaning it didn't go through any helem or any tzimtzum. It came down just exactly as it was. Shalamayla mibchinas haparsa. That which comes through the parsa is only meir in the form of a kav. In other words, the kav is called in its lower madregas al choponim is called kav hamido, because it's all in it to reveal only the union of gvul v'mido, measurement. Kav hamido. Ela, what was here revealed? K'moisha ha'oy ha'atzmi mamish bo lidei. It came into complete revelation.
What's the difference between kava and kava mida?
Well, kava mida means what the kava actually does in, say, the Hishtalshalas. That it measures literally all the different oiras which is shy to all the different. There's a famous mashal, and it says that the kava is like a big channel, and these little small channels that are taken off, what are called like chinoiris. Ketanim to the different little patches of the gardens and everything. So, in other words, that the kav is, the main kav, and then from the kav itself we draw all sorts of smaller hamshoches. So that's the union of the kavamido. The kav becomes like a shurish to measure things into all the different. If it weren't for the kav, you wouldn't be able to have those midas. Well, that's already become close to Atzilus, so they come down into the area of what you might call Atzilus. And then we say that the kav is a kav kotzer, that's about the kav itself. Not so much what the kav does to other inyanim, but that's in it sets itself. Like gavi that oil was going to symptom. It's kotza. You understand? So it doesn't mean in measurement, but it means that it's kotza in the sense that everything has been reduced into a form of gvul. So the word kotza is a description of the kav in its own self. Kav midor is what the kav eventually in Atzilus and Lamatim he said does and brings midah into all the inyanim. You follow? So therefore he says, Shalamaylam Yipinus HaParsha, She'ene Mer Achale Tzimtzum de Kav Ela, he said, Kemoisha Ha'oyer Ha'atzmi Mamish Bo Lidei Gilu, the Matan Torah, there Atzmi was in Pnimis HaKesed, it just came down into revelation in a form of Tainug, Ha'atzmi, V'yaukein Kiblu Kulam Ke'ish Echad. Everybody equally, like one person, Me'oyer Pnimius V'atzmis Ein Sei. They all were makabel from the very Indian of Pnimius V'atzmius, Befrat B'dibreis, in the first two Dibreis, Da'anechi V'loi Yela Cho, the Mipia Gvura Shamainus. One of all the Yidden heard that directly from the Eibishter. There's one on the first two Rashi brings it Barichas and Pashi Yisrael, that the first two Diburim everybody heard, and then the rest Moshe Rabbeinu heard, and he gave it over to the Yidden. Aval Chapanim, the first two Diburim everybody heard, L'Kol Yisrael Be Shavon. Imam everybody heard, everybody heard equally. However, if we study that carefully, even though the Rebbe said he doesn't mention the word re'iyah. He talks about tremendously high giluim, everything b'shova, everybody heard it equally, and therefore everybody said nice of her. Nishma, they all said complete bittul, it was all meir b'shova to everybody. And like the Sefer Chidum brings it, they all had Navua, and everybody got on the very high Madrega. But he doesn't mention the Indian from Rio, Mamish per se. Rio Kipshute. So we have to say that there is a slight difference between Matan Torah and how it will be early Osid. That by Matan Torah we could say that it wasn't Mamish Rio, Hushius Kipshute in Ella. It's true that it's brought down in the Mechilta that they were Riyam Esah, Nishma v'sheim esa hanira, that there was like a change in the chushim, that the Rio was able to see ruchnias, the kind of things which only heard, no one was able to see them, and the hearing was able to see things which are normally seen. What that's a mashma a mile in the shmir, even more than the Ria. But we don't find, and the Rebbe Rashab says it in the Ayin Beis in a place, we don't find by term mamish real chushis in Elikut. We find tremendously high madregas of gilui, but not mamish. And therefore he said, "Val derech zeh oid b'madrega elyoina yoseh." In this way, but in a higher madrega, meaning that, like we could suggest that one of the madregas elyoinas is going to be the singing of re'iyah mamish. Yosef, the Osid, the Veniglo Quaid of Ivero call also that even the physical flesh is actually gonna see, because Nigla Quaid of Ivero call Botsar. And of course everybody's familiar with the fact that that's a quote from the Haftarah of Shabbos Nachamu. So we can say that we're already jumping the gun, and I would say that that's a Dover Ra'ui Bishvileno. We're already jumping the gun, and we're jumping over Shabbos Chazain, and we're jumping into Shabbos Nachamu, and we're saying Vanigla Koida Vayavaro Kol Basar, that we're already holding, and we demand, and we are Tovea from the Eibishter, that Shabbos Chazain should also be like that. Not just seeing Mirachik, like the famous Moshe of the Badichva, but we should see Mamish Papoyo, Mami. It was like talking to Tim Lomp to get a little bit of his files out of you guys. So anyway, I says the Rebbe Liyos sheis gale b'chinas helem ha'atzmi mamish. The very helem Atzmi, meaning the Helem of the Atzmas itself, which is by definition Behelem because it's too high. B'chlal to be Mizgale, or that's going to be Mizgale, Kemosh Kosu, Yaseh Lemechake Loi, that he's going to do, the Ebshah will do to those who have waited for him. Yeah, in other words, at the Golas, the whole Inyan is compared to like a waiting, like an anticipation, and the learning in Torah and the being medactic, as we brought over there in Samavov, Kameisha Kosa, Bedrush, the Yontav, Shal Rosh, on a race, Samavov, Oirech, at great length, but hopefully some of you guys remember a little bit about it, that we started with the Be'ika, in Pasha Chaisora, and in Pasha Toildas, and other Drushim over there in Samavov, great length, the whole Ina V'yasel Mechake Loi, that the Mechake Loi was the Inyan of learning Torah with Mesiras Nefesh in a form of going beyond all the limitations and learning all the dikdukim and waiting and deepening oneself into the ultimate pnimias of the message of the Torah, and through that take of miyad to be zeichet to the Mechake, to the Yaseh, that the Eibusha will do it and bring it, and as he brought that means Yam Shochet down into Asiyah, Mamish, for all those that have patiently and struggled with the inyan of learning Torah. V'ayiyeh hagilui l'chol echad ve'echad shelo b'pinas upana v'limud, not in the way of teaching and learning from one madrega to the other, derech tzimtzum v'parsa, but Gilui Shorosh Atzmi to everybody in an equal way. Ki Gilui Shaloi b'chinas tzimtzum v'helem klal. It won't be in the form of any tzimtzum or any helem, at all. And that's the in and what he brings over there in Samavov, the Gilui, the Pnimis Atzmi Satainuk Liyosik Hadidei, particularly what he calls over there the Limud of Pnimis. HaTorah, like we saw there in Pasha Leklach, he brings all doing from Rab Rashbi, Rab Shimon Bar Yochai from Gilui Pnimis HaTorah. Now we go back to what we saw in Zechariah Anovi, that he said, V'nivka har hazeisim michetyoi mizrocha v'yomo. That har hazeisim is going to be split in half, michetyoi, let's see, through its half, mizrocha v'yoma, east and west. Mizrach means the east, Yam means the west, like in Eretz Yisrael, that's the way it is. Mizrach is in towards where Syria is nowadays, and the other places in there, and Yoma is how do you call it, the sea, the Yamagodl. So Mizracha v'Yoma, that the mountain is going to split Mizracha v'Yoma. Now that what it means, if you look carefully in the pasuk, what it means is that there's going to be like a split on a gorge in the mountain. It's going to divide into two from east to west, which means that the two halves of the mountain will be facing north and south. In other words, it will be split through the middle, and there'll be two halves of it, literally, one which will be facing south and one which will be facing north. Over the gay in the middle is going to be east to the west. So what's the union of east to the west? So he says, Hu b'chinas ha'oirech mi mizrach le'ma'arav. He said from east to west, well, that's what we call the length of something. In other words, if we're measuring the length, then usually the concept of length is connected to the idea of east and west. And breadth, the union of Reichov, is north and south. That's how it is all Drushi Hafsidus. What people may think, boy, from Balbatish is another thing, but that's the way we decide what is Oirach and what is Reichav. So there was the Rebbe, the Inyan from Mizrach Lamariv, or that's the Inyan from Oirach. Akameisha Kosev, V'zorach HaShemesh, Ubo HaShemesh. We see that the Shemesh goes up in the east, Ubo HaShemesh, he goes down in the west. Shezrichas HaShemesh, Uba Mizrach, Ubiosei, and he's coming down, and he's going down as in Marav. Delochein, Nikra HaMizrach Kedem, therefore Mizrach is called prior or primordial, the word kedem, meaning the concept of before, or Ma'arav nikra achoir, literally the end or the exit or the back. Shehu beginners reish seif. It's like the head and the completion, like the beginning and the end. The inyan ha'oirech hu beginners yerida. Yeah, you go from the rosh down to the, or across to the sof. That's the idea of oirech. So he said that's the inyan of Yeridas Hashefa, the going down of the divine influence, Hashpolosei Migavoela Namuch, from higher down to, or across to lower. And he said, Kemoi Tzuras Havov, Shohilach Venimshach Milmailala Mata, that the Teva of a Vov is, that he's got a Yud, which we'll see about that at the beginning. At the top he has a Yud, Zedus Alpisophrus. You have to make this a form of a Yud facing the other way, albeit, but no, it's not facing the other way. It's a Yud, yeah. It's more as a Yud at the top, and then it comes down into the form of a line which draws in a way which, at least as far as the Sefer is concerned, is going downwards. However, he said, Bechinas Yeridas Hashefa, Ashpolosei Migavoela Namuch, and that's the Tzura of a Vav, Shohila V'nimshach Milmailala Lamata, that it also does Shemishkatzer Baham Shochosei, and it gets, as it were, literally shorter as it goes down. As you know, a Vav can be quite thick at the top, but as it goes down, it thins slightly. In other words, it becomes more matzumtzam as it goes along. And like we saw, the word kotzar is a description of the etzem inyan of gevul v'tzimtzum in the cow. So therefore, kemo yeridas hashefa oyer hashpoas, oyer haseichel miyam hashpia el makabel b'chinas ha'oyrech. It's also considered like length. Sheyesh boy roishva, so that there's also in the hamshocha, the mashpia to the makabel, also this idea of reish basayim. Because at the beginning is Meir the Era Seichel Arizba the Mishpia, and it goes down B'derech Tzimtzumim into the Makabel. So we'll see about that, Emir Tashem, on more and future developing episodes of the Union of the B'kiyas Ahar. It's going to be that all that will be no longer the case, and it's all just going to be Hadikot Chochmah Bereish or Chochmah B'Seif, and they're all joined together, not that they're separated in the middle by Tzimtzumim and Helomes, but there'll be Mamishpa Begolui, all the Inyonim. But this is an amazing formula to be learning in the 9 days. This is the answer that we are looking